Hello. Happy Thursday. Let's go.
Listen, folks, I know there's a history here. I'd like to get this hearing in today. You know, everybody needs to just focus on the relevant facts, okay? I know there's a history here.
Are you talking up by Sunset Mart? Up the hill by the gas station?
Yeah.
Okay. Why did you?
This is part 2. Welcome. Come on in.
All right. Who's responsible here? Who's responsible here? Whose house is this?
Yeah, have been drinking or anything, right?
No.
Okay. Drive careful, okay?
Thank you.
This is what the other group had that ran away.
Oh, really?
You just ditched it?
Awesome.
Yeah, those ones kept walking to the car.
It's truly for the win.
What's that, Miss Potts? There we go. All right, let's get started, guys. We are going to be picking up here. This is a part 2. So kicking us right off here at 9:30. Part 2 of this shit piece from Seattle. Also, you know, I have to just say this. Chris McDonough is still saying that the glove that has the blood on it is the glove that he found. Y'all, that's wild. He wasn't there. He was not there. That's just absolute craziness right there. He wasn't there. He just did a live last night about it. I was like, God, what's going on? So, I mean, Chris McDonough said that's the glove he found. I don't even know what to say about that. Okay. So I'm just going to make something up. Let's just go with, I don't even know. Anyways. Whoo. Let's see what Seattle has to say. Hope you guys have had a great Thursday. You guys do anything special for Valentine's Day tomorrow? Do you guys even celebrate it?
Welcome to this podcast episode of Brian Kohberger Inside the Idaho Murders. I'm David Rose, and thanks for joining us. We have put together a whole team of scientists, veteran detectives, journalists, and experts, including mental health experts, to re-examine the deaths of the 4 University of Idaho students. Because with Brian Kohberger's trial set to start this summer, this story has changed. We've got a lot to get to, and it is fascinating stuff. Retired Detective Cloyd Steiger was with the Seattle Police Department for many years and worked 22 years in the homicide unit. And Cloyd has a unique perspective into the minds of these accused killers and into the DNA evidence. So let's talk about the DNA evidence right off the bat. Cloyd, the judge in the Idaho murders next week is expected to rule on a motion by the defense on whether to allow the DNA evidence that was found on the knife sheath at the scene of the murders. Now, that DNA on that knife sheath led to genetic genealogy that they used to eventually identify Kohberger as the suspect. The defense says that was a violation of privacy. We should throw that out. So genetic genealogy has solved some major cold cases from a while back. Do you think this evidence is going to get thrown out?
I don't think there's a chance it's going to get thrown out.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't claim privacy for something left at someone else's home. You know, it's not like it was his home; it was entered without a warrant or something. So, you know, that's a specious argument, and the attorneys know that. They're just throwing everything at the wall.
So that's one piece of DNA evidence. But Cloyd, when you go into a murder scene like this, that is particularly brutal, a lot of fluids, blood, etc., somebody that murders somebody up close with a knife like that, what kind of evidence are they likely to leave behind?
Well, there's probably a host of DNA evidence there that they either have not recovered or aren't telling anybody about. because in a close one-on-one, wrestling around, stabbing somebody, there's a lot of personal contact, there's sweat, there's things like that, and he would have left his DNA there also, even if he had gloves on, through his shirt and through his clothing.
So,
Oh my, well, you guys, we're going to have some fun tonight. Wow. So let me get this straight. He is saying that they have DNA that probably we don't even know about and they're not telling people about. You guys, if that was true, let's be honest, if that was true, they wouldn't have had to go through any of this potential illegal ways of obtaining the man's arrest warrant. If there was DNA that was there at the crime scene that could have been tested, but they said that they probably didn't test it. What? Who are these people? Who are these people? What is this mean?
Like that, and he would have left his DNA there also, even if he had gloves on, through his shirt and through his clothing.
so there are a number of documents that are
Like that, and he would have left his DNA there also. That they either have not recovered.
fluids, blood, etc. Somebody that murders somebody up close with a knife like that, what kind of evidence are they likely to leave behind?
Well, there's probably a host of DNA evidence there that they either have not recovered or aren't telling anybody about, because in a close one-on-one, wrestling around, stabbing somebody, there's a lot of personal contact, there's sweat, there's things like that, and he would have left his DNA there also, even if he had gloves on, through his shirt and through his clothing.
So there are a number of documents that are sealed that we have not been able to access at this point. The only DNA evidence we know about is the evidence that was found on the knife sheath. Is it possible they're holding some of that back for trial?
Well, it's possible, but I don't think so if the defense is attacking this knife sheath so much, because if the back up.
If they're attacking the knife sheath so much, then what you were just claimed 2 seconds ago has zero merit. You guys, okay. I have to let the cat out the bag. Do people just argue things knowing that it doesn't make any sense, but they just say it because they think that we're not going to catch on to it, or they're just not going to catch it? Because this is ludicrous. This is ludicrous. This is insanity. You just said that there's probably all this DNA, blah, blah, blah. But then you just said that the defense is going ham over a sheath. You guys, if there was all this DNA that had Brian's DNA all over it, like on other things, okay, then why would the defense be going ham over the sheath? I mean, do these people listen to themselves? I don't even know if there's words that do listen to yourself. I mean, this is a guy that was a detective for how long? Like this is a guy that put people away, okay, off of this type of logic, this brain. This is a guy that's leading investigations to, I don't care if it's for freaking who stole my bike, okay, like, wow.
Thrown out there be other DNA evidence. I just don't think they've recovered it.
Well, there is technology now that makes it available to be able to get way more DNA than they used to. And I know that you're pretty familiar with one of the systems, the MVAC system.
Yes.
What does that system do? And would that have been helpful in this case?
Oh, absolutely helpful. It's a wet vacuuming DNA collection system, and it's about the size of a carry-on luggage. It's got a wand on it, and for clothing, for example, you just run it up and down the area of clothing you want to test. It blasts sterile fluids into it and then sucks them back up, and then when it's done, it goes into this beaker, and you take the beaker and you pour it through a filter. And then they take that filter, and that's what they test for the DNA. The difference between that and like cut and swab the old way, which is what I think they did in Idaho, is for cut and swab, you have to have an idea where the DNA would be, and you're making an educated guess. But if you're a quarter inch off, you're 1,000 miles off. You're going to miss it. Where this does big areas, and you'll get it. It do much larger areas, and it's much more effective in collecting DNA.
So this technology is being used in Washington State, but
Okay, so think about this. Think about what he just said. Think about why they wouldn't have used it, right? So think about this. He just said you're going to do it over like clothing, right? Clothing. Well, if these people were in their rooms sleeping and they sleep naked or with not that many, clothes on, okay? We have no idea what what anybody was wearing. In fact, I'm very interested to find out what people were wearing, because I think it's going to tell a lot about the time, of this crime. Because if people had, let's say, all the clothing that they were out in on, that could potentially be a lot earlier than somebody that's getting cozied up and going to bed at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning that would have gotten changed. So I don't know. But why wouldn't they have used something like that?
But apparently not in Idaho.
Not in Idaho, and the FBI doesn't have an MVAC either.
That surprises me, because we
Who cares if the FBI has it or not?
always hear that the FBI has been brought in to assist on a case. What does that usually mean, Cloyd?
Well, it doesn't. First of all, it means you're going to have another level of bureaucracy thrown on top of your investigation. But everybody thinks that the FBI crime lab, for example, is cutting edge, but that's not always the case. They still do things, like I said before, in 20th century techniques instead of 21st century that's available to them now.
Wow, that is fascinating. So obviously there might be some things that could have been found that might not be found. Of course, we'll find out.
I'm absolutely certain there's stuff they haven't found that could be found. Yeah.
Oh boy. All right, let's talk about what else is missing. The knife and the clothes he allegedly wore. So after the murders, police say that he drove around. His data shows he drove, big loops all the way around. What's going through the mind of a killer after slaying 4 people in such brutal fashion like that?
Well, I don't think he's thinking clearly at all. He's probably panicking, probably trying to figure out where to get rid of this stuff. If he was smart, he'd throw it in a dumpster, because by the time that police get the phone information, the dumpster's long gone, been emptied, and the evidence is going to be in the middle of a landfill somewhere. But if you threw it somewhere along that way, I'm sure they've gone back and searched those areas. But if you throw it just out in the woods or something, it can be found. Whereas it's much more unlikely if you throw it in a dumpster.
Well, unfortunately, nothing has been found. Police believe he did train his mind. He did study on how to commit these murders. Would he have prepared on how to get rid of the evidence? And then how would that plan go up against actually what happens inside the house when he does commit the murders?
It's kind of like battle plans. Everything's all planned out till the first shot's fired, then everything goes out the window. And I'm sure that's what happened here. He's panicking. He's not thinking, even as much as he thought before. He's in a stressful situation. He's got tunnel vision. Things are running through his mind, but he's not thinking rationally. Who knows? He may have planned it out, but he probably didn't follow the plans he made.
Wow. So when you look at the demeanor of him in court, he seems so stoic. He seems so controlled. Are you saying that even the most calculating killers that you've interviewed after a murder freak out about what they did?
Well, something like this, if he's never done it before or never been exposed to that type of stuff before, and you're in a thing where you're fighting and it's, first of all, very physically difficult to fight and stab 4 people. And then second of all, it's much more chaotic, and he's not, like I said, everything goes out the window once it starts. And so, yes, I don't think he is equipped to handle this kind of stress.
So as he is heading to Pennsylvania.
You guys, that's completely opposite of what they just said in episode 1, which is, look at him. He is like, it was like describing like Rocky. He's just so like focused and stoic and just like nothing's phasing him. Remember that? That was what they said on episode 1. Now, episode 2, he would have been freaking out. He'd have been shitting his pants and just scared shitless and blah, blah, blah. Wow.
He's going to take a long road trip. Seems to like road trips, right?
Yeah.
Says he likes to go out and look at the stars, this kind of stuff. But there's a image of his face from one of the state patrol cameras, and he's kind of looking up. He looks a little surprised. Do you think he thought the jig was up at that point?
He probably did a little bit. He was worried that it was. And he was probably really relieved when they let him go on, not knowing that was just part of the deal.
Yeah.
He probably thought, oh my gosh, because I've had these conversations with killers where I said, they asked me, what's this about? And I go, oh, you know what this is about. You're hoping it's not, but it is. And they just, you could just see the blood drain from their face.
They just fold.
Yeah, they just fold. And he thought that might be about it. That's why he's got that concerned look on his face.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just for traffic. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
One of the things the defense attorneys are challenging is how police went into his parents' home. No-knock warrant went right in. But they do that because there's probably a concern he might be destroying evidence, bagging things up.
Yeah, or armed or something.
Guns as well, right?
Yeah,
There were firearms in the house, so maybe he wants to go out in a blaze of glory.
Right. Yeah, that's probably the reason. But I mean, the warrant the affidavit was presented to a judge. The judge agreed and signed it. You know, if that judge shouldn't have signed it, then it's a problem. But, you know, if what depends on the law is in Pennsylvania, and case law is in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Well, they had the warrant. So,
Yeah,
you know,
they had a
went in
warrant.
and did
They're
it.
acting in good faith.
Yeah. I want to get back to his mindset a little bit, Cloyd. And
Look at, they don't even want to talk about, look, they have a warrant. They had a warrant. They had a warrant. Was it valid? They went right over that, guys. Like, they didn't want any part of talking about that. The warrant talk. Let's get back to talking about, let's just theorize. Let's just, you know. Okay.
And, you know, I mentioned that he was known to, or said he liked to drive around and look up at the stars. And, you know, could that have been something he really did enjoy doing? Or is he setting a pattern of behavior, trying to set up the plan so that later he could say this is what he liked to do?
He probably, although, you know, it also might be an after the fact thought of what can I say to explain why I'm all these places. I mean, you had all this time and that's the best story you could come up with.
Okay, well, let's be honest about that. If we're going to talk about theories here, let's be honest about it. Where are people normally at 3 o'clock in the morning? Home sleeping. 4 o'clock in the morning. Home sleeping. Right? So why not have your phone at home on YouTube or on Netflix or anything with your phone running and you're watching a movie and you're in bed? What if he was, that's where he was going to say that he was, right? You know what everybody was saying? Oh, so convenient. You know what I mean? It's just like, wait, no, I mean, where's everybody else at 4 o'clock in the morning? So if you truly think about it, if he was trying to commit the perfect murder, why wouldn't he be in his bed at home at 4 o'clock with his phone on and running an app like, oh, let's just be on TikTok, just like, you know, because it's consecutive, it'll just run. I mean, anything that's going to be able to show that you're using the phone, using it, utilizing an app, okay, and you're on that cell tower. I mean, what then? What then? Or did Brian think that, well, there's no way that they're going to lie about what cell towers I'm on, right? I mean, if you're trying to commit the perfect murder, right? Your phone being on a cell tower that it's normally on, like, I mean, why even bring your phone at all? It's fucking wild, man.
Right. Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, he's just trying to make an excuse for why he's seen driving alone. And he also might be stalking other people. You know, he could be. Yeah. I mean, these may not have been the only ones he was stalking.
Yeah.
He probably has a list, at least in his mind, of women he was stalking.
Do you think after all of his preparation, he's buddying up with law enforcement? He's studying the techniques. He's trying to figure out. Do you think he's surprised that he got caught?
Probably, yeah. I mean, he thought he was much smarter.
Okay, let's say that it is Brian. You want to know what I'd be pissed about? I wouldn't be surprised that I got caught. I'd be pissed because if he's truly the killer and he knows that they lied to get all of this stuff to then get him, it's like, okay, you guys all lied. All right. Because if it is Brian, it doesn't change the outcome of what y'all did, meaning the police. Think about that. This is just... whoever did this, in a sense, in my mind, I said, I didn't know who was ever going to be arrested for this, but I believe that they committed a crime that it would have never been solved. Whoever did it. That was either A, that messed up, or B, that like it was going to be unsolved because of a lot of things. For example, we just found out about the blood on the railing, like right there. Okay. If I was a juror to hear that there was blood on the railing and it's unknown male blood on the railing of where everybody was stabbed, and I'm just going to be like that's a huge thing to say, like, and it doesn't belong to this dude. Well, whose blood is it? You know? And then you want to sit here and you want to tell me, well, it's because he had people with him. and he's just not turning their names over. Well, then what other phones were there then? You know, like to find out that you didn't, if I'm a juror to hear that, what did you do to try to find out whose blood that was? Nothing like we did with what we did with the sheath. You know, these people are on fucking drugs, man. I don't know what they're smoking. This is insanity.
Harder than it was. And most of these guys do, and they always get caught.
What was his mistake?
Doing it in the first place.
Good point.
Yeah, but he had no realistic concept of what it would be like.
Yeah, the fantasy in his head based, versus the reality of actually committing murder.
They're
really
two different things. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Do you think they met, or do you think he identified his alleged victims via social media, or did he see them in person?
I'm betting because that's a small area. I mean, WSU he went to, but Moscow's right there.
Yeah.
He probably saw them at a party or something or around, and he probably stalked them on social media. But that's probably.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering how in depth do you think his thought process was? For example, does he figure that if he got caught in Idaho has a death penalty, he's not going to sit in prison the rest of his life?
Maybe. If he thought that through, he probably did think that through.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like he was very successful with women dating.
Right.
He went there so he could get murdered.
His behavior.
I think so. Like I said before, I think it's
What? He went. Did you just hear that question? Do you think he went there because he knew that if he did get caught, he would just get killed anyways? Oh my God. Oh. I don't even. What kind of question is that? He went there as the name of the death penalty.
There's a group. There's not a group like an official group, but a class of people they call incels, which are involuntary celibates, and they sometimes act out in crimes because they're so frustrated. And this may be, I would suspect that's what he is. He's an incel. So that's just like again, it's not a group that you belong to and have a card. It's just a class. Right. It's just a class of human behavior.
Do you develop a hatred for women?
Yeah, or just if you won't have me, you can't have anybody. That type of thing. Yeah, especially if he's a little narcissistic. Now I don't know if he is. He sure acts like he is, but I mean, I don't know enough about it.
The kid hasn't said 2 words. He sure acts like he is. Wow. People can have a lot of opinions about me. I have a podcast. I talk a lot, right? I have a podcast. So I speak a lot. So you can have an opinion about me, okay? Because, hey, I see her on this podcast. This is how she acts, right? Boom. Dude, Brian hasn't said 2 words and hasn't acted how? What? How has he acted? You know how hard we tried to get video of him? This is just, who is this man? Oh, he's a detective. This is the man that was once a detective. And this is how his brain is operating. I'm just like, wow, man. Because I would just have questions back. Oh, what videos have you seen of him and how he acts? When have you ever seen him act? What are you talking about? Because I'm fine with people having their opinions, but I have the question of where does your opinion come from? Like, you have an opinion. Awesome. Where does it come from, though? What are you pulling it from? What are you basing it on? And Brian hasn't even said so much as not guilty. He just stood there, and they perp walked him, twice, right? They haven't even talked about victimology here about, hey, who do you think was the intended target? Somebody that stalked somebody would have known that how many people were in that house, right? And you're just going to go in there and you're just going to stab one person and leave. But it's a party house. Get the fuck out of here. Like, what are they even talking about? Like, this stuff is just what?
To make a psychological diagnosis or anything, but yeah, especially if he's really impressed with himself, or at least on the surface. I'm sure there's a lot of insecurity and below.
Boy, we still need to learn a lot more. We're only scratching the surface. About the stuff here that could come out. Do you think there'll be any big surprises in the trial? You guys haven't scratched anything. You guys have been scratching your asses because none of what you're talking about is accurate. So you're scratching the surface.
You guys are on Mars, man. Get the fuck out of here.
I doubt it. I think
Will he take the stand in his own defense?
his attorneys will not let him.
Even if he
doesn't-
thinks he's that smart.
Yeah, well,
That's smart. His attorneys will not let him.
he could insist, and if he insists, they have to let him. But
There you go. First thing that you said that's worth a damn.
they will fight everything. They don't want him on the stand. He'll get eaten alive on the stand.
Based on what you've seen, do you think they have the right guy? Because Lord help us if they don't.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely have the right guy. They could sure know more if they went back and examined those clothing correctly and vacuumed and find out if there's more DNA on their clothing.
Yeah, people have asked me the same question, and I said DNA just doesn't lie.
No, it doesn't lie. It's either him or it's not. It's not like
So what about the blood? I think you missed the spot as the name of this podcast, episode 2. This is horrible.
the whole argument. Oh, it was tainted DNA. Well, if it's
Who-
tainted DNA, it
Nobody
doesn't.
said anything was tainted. Who said it was tainted? Who said it was tainted? I'm either in. This is how I look at this. You have one of two things here. Okay. Either this is a complete 100% Brian Kober did it. Okay, and he, for some reason, left a knife sheath there, right next to the body of one of the victims. Okay, and it played out obviously how it played out. Or he didn't do it, right? And there's touch DNA on a knife sheath, but nothing else there. And then you have other blood of other males there that nobody knows who that it is. And if he did do it, there's no fruits from, okay, hey, once we arrest this guy, there's going to be a plethora of stuff, that we're going to, find from everything. God, wow.
Make this guy's DNA that guy's DNA, or anything else. It just makes it not usable.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Well, and for people who may not have been following as closely,
We're going to make that guy's DNA that guy's DNA. Nobody's saying that. And if anybody is saying that, they're crazy. We have not been saying that, hey, that DNA is really that person's DNA.
how could a guy this reportedly prepared for a crime leave the knife sheath underneath one of the bodies?
Because in the middle of this, he either if it probably wasn't on his belt, he probably had it in his pocket. He pulled it out, and in the drama and the chaos, he just forgot. He dropped it and didn't and forgot. And probably once he left, he went, "Oh my God, where's my sheath?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the judge.
When do you
said,
think he
well,
would have realized that?
he's never explained his
I've al-
presence in the house.
I've
and
thought
no
about
shape or
that.
form ever
Yeah.
said that he was in.
Okay, so I thought about that. And I said, when do you think that Brian or anybody, whoever would have done this, when do you think they would have realized, right, that the sheath wasn't there? Okay. Because, I mean, you stabbed 2 people upstairs. You stabbed 2 people on the 2nd floor. I mean, is your knife out? Because then where are you putting it? Where are you putting it when you're, if you're only planning on killing, let's say, 1 person up there and you killed 2 because they were in the same bed, are you putting the knife away then at that point because you're going to try to get out of the house, or you're still going to have your knife? Okay. And then, okay, just in case somebody comes at me. So when do you think that you would have realized that? And I would think to myself that I would think that you would have realized that before you left, because you're going to just leave up out of the house then with this knife. Okay. And then, okay, you're about to get to the car. You have to open up your door. You got to start driving. You're driving. I mean, when are you going to realize that you just can't take a knife like that and just, okay, I'm just going to put it in my pocket, the moment that you're going to put it away. And so I'm thinking, all right, well, I'm going to be putting that away before I leave that house, because I don't want to be leaving the house, right? I mean, and then y'all are talking about stripping right down at my car. I'm going to get stripped down and put everything then in a bag, right? Dylan never saw a knife. Yeah. Dawn never saw a knife. Dylan never saw nobody. So you just, when would you have realized this? And I just think that you would have realized it before you left. And I think that you would have no choice but to go back in there and get it, right? Ask yourself what you would do. Would you go back in and get the knife sheath if you thought that everybody that was in that house was killed? I just don't think there's any way in hell I wouldn't have realized that before. Like, oh my God, the next morning, oh my God, where's my sheath? I got to go back over there at 9 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, fucking right. Yeah, right. Like, that's insane. I just think that you would have known, because you're going to go place your knife back in I just think you would have realized it when you have to put your knife back into whatever, does that mean that you think that the person isn't used to really working with a knife? That they were like, oh fuck, the sheath. Like I was just planning on taking the knife and throwing it in my bag. This bag that I had. If you're gonna go in for murder, why would you even have a knife? Because I don't know, you have it on your belt loop. But then I'm just over here just. I can't see how somebody would leave the house with the knife out and exposed when they could like be seen by somebody that could be like driving around or walking right there or something. I don't know. There would be no reason, right? Well, they were saying in a struggle that it got ripped off somehow, but then they're saying, oh, it wasn't on a belt loop; it was just in his pocket, and so when he took out, he put the knife sheath in. I think that it all just is very. I believe it's either Brian, but if it is Brian, I believe that he put the knife sheath there on purpose. That's what I think. I think if it was Brian, he put it there on purpose. Okay? Or it's not him. And then you know that it was placed.
In the house. So.
Right.
So if you want me to say that if when we get to see this evidence, I believe it would have been put there on purpose, regardless of who put it there. Everybody say, well, why would anybody leave it on purpose? Because if somebody thinks this is like a thrill killer, they're trying to like get away with something. Well, here, watch. I'm going to go ahead and kill the people, but I'm going to get off on it. I'm going to go and I'm going to get exonerated, right? So if that's what people want to think, that's the only way that makes sense to me. But then when everything else doesn't add up, like there has to be slips along the way. But if that car doesn't have any blood in it, that apartment doesn't have any blood in it, the parents' house has no blood in it, I don't call them. They don't call me. I'm not, my socials aren't aligning at all. No one's ever saw me. No one can even identify me, but I'm stalking people. Fuck out of here. I'm going to parties in Moscow. Like, no. So who would do that to anyone?
Why not? Why not believe that this is?
Exactly. I mean, Yeah, if he said, "Well, I was there for a party and I had a sheath with me, and I think I left it there," but coincidentally, it's right underneath the body.
Yeah.
That's kind of a coincidence, isn't it?
What about the ID of one of the roommates? And it's now come out that she had been out drinking before. Will that ID be challenged because she said, she looked him right in the eyes and gave a description because she had been drinking?
Well, it depends on how much you've been drinking. Probably not. Of course, I know he was wearing like a COVID mask, so he's only seen from here up.
Wait. You guys know this has never been talked about. Is it a COVID mask or is it a ski mask? This is insane. This is so insane.
But you just that just goes to the weight of her identification. You don't just throw it out. You say, well, maybe that's one small. It's not going to make or break the case.
Yeah,
it's
because they have the DNA.
Because they have the DNA, right?
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what happens with the court. Go ahead. We can talk all day about this, and we will. We're going to have continuing discussions weekly as we move forward toward the trial. This podcast is part of our new monthly Brian Koberger Inside the Idaho Murders documentary series.
Horrible. Absolutely horrible. God. Absolutely horrible, guys. So anyways, that was episode 2. Episode 2, just absolutely atrocious. Like, I don't even fucking have words. Horrible. I believe that the sheath was placed regardless. That sheath was placed. Who it was placed by, don't know. We have to take a look at the evidence. We have to look at that evidence. Let's take a look at this, though, too. So Chris, Chrissy Poo. What's it called? The interview room? Okay, here it is. Shit balls. Again, good evening, everybody. Look at this. Here's Chris. Here's Johnny. All right, what do we got here?
We drove up there and spent the whole day up there looking at this crime scene, and then I came back and resumed what I was doing. But I just happened to look over, and there's that doggone glove sitting there, and I thought, holy cow, I think these guys missed this. So there was a police car sitting out front. Remember, you guys probably remember, the cars how it was sitting here, the patrol car. And I called the officer over, and he walked over, and I said, hey, I'm a homicide guy, and that doesn't look right out in front of this house. And his words were, oh, wow. And he said, okay, I'll get our evidence folks over here, and we'll pick it up and collect it. I said, good idea. That's a great idea. And so that's kind of where we left it. And we kind of stepped away. Karen and I went around back behind the house. I started to take a look at the surrounding area and started to theorize with inside of my own.
Okay. 2 ways I look at this. Either A, Moscow is that dumb, okay, that this would, like, right here, thered be a glove right there, and that somehow, some way, it just eludes the police, okay? And then, lo and behold, Chris McDonough's come around with Karen Bear and his wife, and they just happen to be in Idaho, and we're going to go check out the crime scene, and then, woo, here's a glove. That should just tell you how bad, like, not just Moscow, you got the FBI there. So you got Moscow, FBI, Idaho State Police, Lake Hall County Sheriff's Department. They're that bad. They're that bad. So, I mean, like, you just can't have it both ways. Like, either... But Chris says that this is the glove. This is the glove with the blood on it. That is a piece of that has been talking about, like Ann Taylor brought it up, and saying that we have blood on a glove and we have blood on the banister. And he is now saying that this is his glove that he found. You guys, I showed you the day that he was there. He was there. Like, Chris, when did you get this glove? When were you there? And I proved it. I was like, he went there after Thanksgiving. Like, I cannot believe that he is, again, he did this last night. And then that fucking idiot, Gigi Jen, fucking twirling on her ass, whatever her name, whatever she goes by. I wake up and this girl had tagged me in like 14 videos in a matter of 20 minutes. And she tagged me in this. Girl's off her rocks, man. But did he give a date at the beginning?
It could have been, another investigator dropped it, by accident. I mean, there was all kinds of theories and thoughts going on. But in fact, people were even blaming me, for putting the glove down there, as if I got, enough time in my life to go to jail for planting evidence. Murder, right?
You know who said that? JLR. JLR says, I don't know, did Chris McDonough put it there? You guys, oh my God. He's like, do you think I'm going to go to... No. Chris, we're just simply saying that please just tell us the date that you were there. And I mean, I know the date, but that's all. And then we can just cross it all off. Like, yeah, great, you found a glove, but I'm telling you it's not the glove.
It could have been, another investigator dropped it, by accident. Where'd that come from? Now, I don't know.
You guys think that this glove was missed by, look at those footprints right there. You think that this glove was missed by these guys? Then oh my God, then they're as bad as we are saying they are. Look at this. It's that black thing right there. And there's a big old boot. Boots with the fur. Look at that. Look at that. I said it was his glove. It fell out of his butt.
No, if this is the glove that they're referring to in Ann Taylor's argument to the court.
Okay, wait. Wait. He's talking about it right here.
And so I looked a little bit closer, and sure enough, it was a black glove, sticking out of the snow. And, the more I looked at it, I thought, okay, where'd that come from? Now, I don't know if this is the glove that they're referring to in Ann Taylor's argument to the court. But I definitely knew, in my heart of hearts, that this situation was...
Walking it back, Chris. Good boy. Walking it back. Walking it back. You guys heard that. I don't know if it's the glove that Ann Taylor is talking about. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. You guys, first time ever that he said that. Okay. You guys know that he was paraded around, Nancy Grace. He was paraded around other channels about this fucking glove. All right.
Just not looking right, right? I mean, there it is. You can see it right here. And
look at it. It's like literally right next to the boots.
It's sticking out, and there's some leaves over it. There's snow over it. So I didn't know, like probably the next person, if it had been there for quite some time, if it had been planted there, or what the story was, right?
It was planted there. Who planted it there? What are you talking about? It's in the crime scene tape. You guys, this is killing me. This is in the crime scene tape. And if somebody, who planted it? Yeah, it's not due. We have the dates. I know. You guys see that it is inside the crime scene tape. So Chris, you're sitting here telling me that you believe somebody planted that, like was just walking by and like, let's just plant this glove here because we're going to have Chris coming through and he can do a big shebang on it on his channel. This is my entertainment.
It could have been, another investigator dropped it, by accident. I mean, there was all kinds of theories and thoughts going on. But in fact, people were even blaming me for putting the glove down there as if I got, enough. time in my life to go to jail for planting evidence in a high-profile murder, right? So there was all kinds of, crazy ideas coming around. And,
Definitely.
I mean, how crazy is that, right? Like Karen and I we drove up there because we were working on another case. It's out now. The information's out now, but I was working on Michael Vaughn at the time. And this thing, there's like 11 or 12 days later, we drove up there and spent the whole day up there looking at this crime scene. And then I came back and, resumed what I was doing. But I just happened to look over and there's that doggone glove sitting there. And I thought, holy cow, I think these guys miss this.
I think these guys miss this. Wow, Chris. Oh my gosh. Then here, now. Ready for my laugh of the day.
Jonathan Lee Riches investigates. I am covering the Michael Vaughn case out of Fruitland, Idaho. Right now, authorities are searching the property belonging to a Stacy and Sarah Wandra, who live a few blocks away from the Vaughn family in Fruitland, Idaho. Chris McDonough with the interview room. We've been seeing him cover other missing people's cases, in particular the Summer Wells case. He is on scene right now outside the Wandra home. Check it out.
Check it out.
Chris McDonough, the interview room. You see he was with a couple Fruitland officers. He is outside the home. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? He has a big subscriber channel.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I love it.
Over 100,000 subs on his YouTube channel, but he is out in front of the Wandra's home right now. I'm sure he'll be coming out with some new insight.
Okay, now let's take a look at what date this is. Okay. Now, Jailer put this out November 18th. Okay. So November 18th. And he's usually pretty on it. So, like, I bet you that was like the day. All right. So now, for what it's worth, let's go like this. Let's bring in now next on stage. Next on stage. What the heck? I just had it. Did he take it down? I'll be so pissed if he took it down. Ugh. Oh, bull crap. Let me go to mine. Okay, here we go. Got it. Yes.
Walking by, looking, what happened in Moscow, Idaho? 4 college students brutally stabbed inside a home in the middle of the night. Police have made 0 arrests. Who did it? Who's responsible? So Chris McDonough of the interview room, he is at the scene on where the stabbings happened. And he made a community post on his YouTube channel. I want to share that with you here, and then we're going to discuss.
Here's a close-up of the glove I found and had police collected the Moscow homicide scene 6 hours ago.
Chris McDonough claims he found a glove by the crime scene, by the house. So, do you think he's lying? Do you think he's telling you the truth? What do you think this glove is about?
He's lying.
Let's show the picture again.
What do you think he's lying?
Looks like the glove is under some snow, so possibly been there for a while. I'm dumbfounded if the glove was there, why police didn't get it earlier, right? You have a crime scene, you would think You would search the entire area around the home and pick up anything and everything that you see. Notice in that picture, there was also looked like a candy wrapper. It looked like a candy wrapper there with the glove. Now, was that glove planted by Chris McDonough? I don't know.
Chris McDonough. I don't know. Jesus. You guys, this is so great. Was that glove like planted by Chris McDonough? So, for the record, all right, this is where I got it from when I was like, so I put on one of my red flag episodes and I was like, this glove is a motherfucking red flag, okay? But JLR just says this Chris McDonough planet.
I don't know. Was that glove there after police secured the scene and somebody was just a neighbor or anyone just walking by looking, observing the house, just like Chris McDonough is there, and dropped the glove? It does seem like it was under snow a little bit. There seems to be a footprint by there. Is that glove?
You guys, it is inside the tape. This is really, really important. It is inside the tape. Nobody is walking inside the tape when the tape gets put up. Now, remember, though, they extended the tape. At one time it was, and then they said that they, pushed out the perimeter. So, but no, I'm not going to go inside the tape and whoops, I just dropped this glove here. Whoops. Like, this is either it fell out of a police officer's back pocket, right? Bill Nye the Science Guy, could be Ashley Jennings. But how would you miss this?
Related to anything with this case. I'm analyzing. It's good that he turned it into authorities. He should. Hopefully, authorities actually secured that area and actually got everything they needed to get. But is that glove a possible clue? Is that glove a clue on who, was at that house? Or maybe the actual stabber? Maybe it's his glove.
The actual stabber.
He dropped the glove. So, you would think that authorities at that point getting that glove would take it to forensics, analyze it, do DNA testing, fingerprint analysis. What happened in Idaho? So, with an unsolved crime, communities on edge, reporters are out there, YouTubers are out there. And as this case remains unsolved, more media is going to be encamped outside that home, putting a lot of pressure on law enforcement to do something about this case. YouTubers and crime tourists and
crime tourists. I'm dead. Crime tourists, you guys. Someone please change their name to crime tourists, please. Crime tourists. Here we are. This is Crime Tourists. My name is Lana, and I will be your spirit guide.
Just regular people are going to come to the area.
I love JLR.
Go around there with their cameras and film everything. Try to interview everyone. That's what's going to happen as this case remains unsolved. Mark my words. Subscribe to my channel, hit the notification button. I am covering this case, Moscow, Idaho. What happened? Who's responsible? Hopefully, police arrest someone soon. The Sigma Chi fraternity is within eyesight of that home, and that fraternity is where Ethan Chapin and his girlfriend Xana.
Dude, I love that JLR was all up in their asses. Okay, like all up in their asses. So I want to bring up and show you guys so that was the latest with the, the glove recircling and the, let's see though. Okay, yes, this is what I want to show you. All right, you guys are going to love it. Okay, so you guys remember, we were all over this case from the beginning, right? And so I'm like, we have to go back into the vault and look back up all of our shit. And so I was like, I'm telling you, look at this. Dylan Morrison and Bethany Funk secret texts. You see that? This is from over a year ago. Remember what just came out? Oh my God. Who was texting during the murder? So let's take a look.
I am covering the Moscow, Idaho, Brian Kohlberger case. Let's talk about Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, the two surviving roommates who were in that Moscow, Idaho home during the early morning hours of November 13th, 2022, when 4 college students got brutally stabbed. Authorities arrested Brian Kohlberger on 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary. Now, I want to share some information with what is publicly known and information what is not publicly known. What is publicly known in reference to Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk? Well, according to the affidavit of probable cause, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, their phones were seized by authorities, and the authorities analyzed their phones. Check it out.
The combination of Dylan Mortensen's statements to law enforcement, review of forensic downloads of records from Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen's phone, and video of a suspect video, as described below, leads the investigators to believe the homicides occurred between 4 a.m. and 4:25 a.m.
So now let me tell you what is not publicly known. I'm going to share a tweet first with y'all, and then we will further discuss. Check it out.
I tweeted this out on my Twitter account at J.
It's going to be really damaging for Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk when it gets publicly revealed that they were texting one another during the murders. Oh my God! I told you I had a bomb for you. I know where he got this information from as well. I know his source. And it's accurate. And then boom, it just what comes out. You guys.
JLR investigates. It's going to be real damaging for Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk when it gets publicly revealed that they were texting one another during the murders. Brian Kohlberger case.
During the murders, Bethany and Dylan were texting one another. That was told to me by a very, very credible source close to this case. And the grand jury heard that information. The grand jury that indicted Brian Kohlberger, that Dylan and Bethany were both texting one another during the murders. And when they were texting one another, I'm told they were texting about what was going on in the house at that time. Bethany is a mystery because Bethany, I believe in those texts, said stuff different than what Dylan was saying in those texts. And that's possibly why the defense of Brian Kohlberger thinks Bethany has exculpatory evidence and they wanted to speak to her. But they were texting with one another and authorities had that text. Those texts, a series of texts.
Let's motherfucking talk about this shit. Wow. This is amazing. This is just so damn amazing. Welcome to Truth and Transparency. Woo-wee. Who would that credible source be? Well, I believe it was Steve Gonsalves. But maybe I'm wrong. What do you guys think? I mean, this is straight truth right here. Could his source been Olivia? Chronicles with Olivia. Could his source been Bullhorn Betty? You know, because they got it through who they got it through. Okay. But this is fact. I mean, this has now come out. This is fact. This is ooh, when this case is over, I'm gonna I'm gonna keep my mouth shut right now. You gotta know when to shut them down.
Could be very damaging for Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk when it all comes out, because then people are going to wonder, why did you call police? Didn't call police. No one called authorities. To 8 hours later, those two didn't even make the 911 call. There's going to be a lot of backlash on Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk. And I feel that if this does go to trial, this case, all that is going to come to light on the stand and everyone's going to be like, oh. And the defense is going to hone in on that big time when it comes to this case. To me, I feel like the prosecution at the end of the day might try to work a deal out with Kohlberger to avoid these two potential witnesses from getting on the stand for one of the reasons, that information, them texting one another during the murders. It's wild stuff, people. It's wild stuff. I've been covering this case extensively. I got sources all around the case that are talking. I appreciate that. Want to get out kind of an understanding of what's going on. Still not clarity on a lot of things, but they were in fact texting one another, I was told, and I believe that source. Let me know what you think. If they were texting one another during those murders and each one was saying something, do you think that's bad? Do you think that's bad that, you know, the murders were reported hours later and they were texting? Or what's your thoughts on that? Obviously, apparently they knew what was going on in that moment. Or maybe one knew and one didn't, or one was saying something different than the other. It's going to be interesting when those texts come out. And I think...
Okay, ready for this? What if everybody's thinking that it's about texting about the murders because one person's there and the other person's not there? The contents and then the context of these messages are going to be, whoa. This is unreal. Damn. I don't know how I feel about it. I also don't, I mean, they're describing what they're hearing. What time are these text messages at? Because like I said this before, if I text you and I say, you're never going to believe what just happened to me. And I say, I just got in a car accident and this fucking asshole rear-ended me. Okay. Right after he flashed me. And that's what made him crash into me. You know, and I said, you're not going to believe what just happened to me. But then come to find out, yeah, well, I said that. But I mean, by the time I wrote that to my friend, I had to deal with his ass. I had to deal with the cop. I mean, that was probably like 45 minutes later. I mean, I didn't, like, that's not when it actually physically happened. But me saying figuratively, you're not going to believe what just happened. It doesn't mean that it happened like that at that time. So I'm just like, woo, wild. Texting at the wrong time sounds like a great way to create an alibi. I think that one thing that we can say then is nobody was in a frozen shock state if they are texting with each other. Nobody was frozen and couldn't do anything, right? Well, their conversation will be their alibi. I think it's going to be what do you guys think it says? Hey, do you hear that? No, I can't hear anything. Or, yeah, I hear that. So we just sat in our rooms hearing stuff that we've never heard in our lives before and just sat there and laid there. Like, what? Wild, huh? I also think you could say to yourself, well, is one of them not there that they're texting the other person versus, you know, going and talking to them. So, hey, do you hear that screaming? And then what if these text messages are at, I don't know, 3 o'clock, 3:30, 5? I have no idea. Ashley Jennings seems to think, oh, it's when it's happening. Okay. If Dylan says, I just yelled at them to shut the fuck up, I mean, then, wow. Wow, would a killer just walk on by it and not kill Dylan? For Dylan to be alive is just, that doesn't make any sense. If you killed 4 people, what would be 5? Fuck, what would be 6? I mean, I don't know. I just don't know if I believe that. I think it's going to get wild. I think this case is going to be so wild. And but I think for me, if I was out of it and didn't know what was going on, I could see myself texting, be like, what the fuck is going on? Because they do have wild, crazy shit over there. They all are, like, I mean, playing music, partying, you know. But I would think somebody screaming bloody murder is different. I mean, I don't know. But I think it's a lie. I think the police lied and made Dylan, you know, say that she saw all these things that she didn't see. And that's why they're saying that that Bethany has exculpatory evidence, because Dylan and whatever the text messages were saying then too. But to say that the grand jury heard this shit, wow. A grand jurors heard that these 2 girls were texting during this. Wow. I don't even know what to say. Wow. 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 Let's see. Something else I want to see if he still had it up. We were looking at another one. Wow. Just wow. Okay. Something's fishy. Something's fishy. JLR says, let's see how he does it. Something's fishy. Let's take a look at it.
The probable cause affidavit is a lot different than what Moscow police were telling the public during the first 7 weeks of when this tragedy happened. A lot of different information. For instance, remember, police would put these daily or every few day updates that they would put on their Facebook page. We're talking about Moscow police. And then they said that the two surviving roommates, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, they were asleep downstairs. But that's not the case, according to the affidavit of probable cause submitted by Corporal Brett Payne with the Moscow Police.
Brett Payne.
Brett Payne says that one of the surviving roommates, Dylan Mortensen, DM, was not on the first floor, but on the second floor and was awake when the stabbings occurred. She said, according to the affidavit of probable cause to the police, that she heard noises and saw a male figure in the home, bushy eyebrows. That's not what the police were telling the public. That alone is fishy. Something is very fishy about that. Then we have Bethany Funk, right? And the affidavit of probable cause says that Bethany Funk told police that Ethan and Xana were at the Sigma Chi party after 1 a.m. into the 13th after 1 a.m. But remember, at the time, police were saying they still don't know the timeline of Ethan and Xana. They were wondering about their whereabouts up to when the murders happened. So how could that be? When did authorities interview Bethany Funk and Dylan, where they say things different in the affidavit than what the police were putting out?
Now we know
something is definitely fishy about that. Then we have the whole circumstances with Brian Kohlberger. We have, the white Hyundai Elantra that they were looking for. Model was wrong. They were in the months of December 2022 going east in towns like Kendrick area, all the way east Idaho. But according to the affidavit of probable cause, they had an idea who Brian Kohlberger was, seems like at the end of November.
See? He even thought that. Fishy.
And now we're hearing that the Moscow County Commission allocates all this money towards Brian Kohlberger's defense team. How much money is going towards the prosecution in this case? If the defense team gets hundreds of thousands of dollars, maybe even $1 million, I'm sure the prosecution also gets that type of money. That's a lot of money dealing with
lot of moolah.
This case. Something is definitely fishy. It doesn't smell right, like this water.
Like this water. It doesn't smell right.
I can smell the water from here. It's actually beautiful out here. This is on the west coast of Florida.
I love it.
It's actually beautiful out here.
Fuck yeah,
like
JLR.
That goes in. But it does smell fishy out here. Just like the Brian Kohlberger case. Look at the reflection. But it smells fishy out here. Just like the Moscow, Idaho4 case. What, if anything, smells fishy to you?
What, if anything?
But I'm constantly brainstorming about this case. And a lot of things don't smell right. Like Brian Kohlberger, being in that area. Why did he choose that area? Now, there's limited information that's being put out because of the gag order. And the gag order, to me, smells fishy. It's like unprecedented, but it seems like lately in this country with other high-profile cases like the Richard Allen,
I love
judges just want to create their own precedent and create their own rules and say people can't talk about cases where the Constitution that I feel that allows you to do that and should be able to do that. First Amendment. Maybe that's a difference in judicial philosophy with these these cases. There's a couple types of judges out there. There's constitutional judges and there's progressive judges that want to, you know, interpret the law how they feel it should be instead of actually following Constitution precedent. So that to me is fishy. Unless I'm wrong. Do you think I'm wrong when I say that? Do you think gag orders should be in play? Just a lot of fishy, smelly. It just doesn't smell right. It doesn't pass the smell test with me. Just like if you went to a beach.
When I go to a beach, all I smell is banana boat, man. And if I can't smell banana boat, I get the fuck up out of that beach. I want to see nothing but baby oil and banana boat.
Or a swamp. Farmland.
Swamp ass.
It doesn't smell right on farmland. You know, cow manure, pasture, smell. I mean, the beaches are nice. It just doesn't smell right. But I am covering this case. What is your thoughts? What smells fishy
I'm right
to
with you. That smells like shit.
Moscow, Idaho 4 case. Maybe it smells like roses to you. Maybe everything smells correctly. But to me, I have a bitter smell when I analyze this case. Let me walk over here to this beautiful seawall. I'll show you the seawall.
All right, guys. Oh, God, something's fishy in Idaho, man. Nothing but some fishy stuff going on. Let's see what we found on the. Do you guys remember when there was all those animal like skulls and stuff like that? You remember that? We were finding a bunch of crazy stuff with that. So shit balls. Let's see. Open book. Oh, yeah. He did like a oh, JLR. Love it. Here, I'm going to share this one. There you go. So Bethany spotted.
Jonathan Lee Rich's investigates. I am covering the Moscow, Idaho Brian Kohlberger case. We have a Bethany Funk sighting, everyone. Bethany Funk seen in public. There was a social media post where a friend of Bethany Funk posted a picture with her. And I will share this post with you, and then we will further discuss. Let's check it out. Okay, so we have a Bethany Funk sighting, and it looks like she is at Oracle Park in San Francisco, California, the baseball stadium where the San Francisco Giants play. And she's with someone here. Do not know who she's with, but there's a post. And it says, Vandal Strong. It warms my heart that she still is surrounded with people she loves. This picture was taken just a few weeks ago of Bethany. I'm so glad she is living her young life and not letting it go to waste while going through something so traumatic. Bless Bethany and Dylan. And I'll zoom this in. Looks like she got a purse with her and she's with a friend. So she's in California while this prosecution case is going on in Idaho. Seems like Bethany is in the San Francisco area attending a baseball game. Well, let me know what you think about this photo. So Bethany Funk at Oracle Stadium, San Francisco. That is where the San Francisco Giants play. Is Bethany from San Francisco now? Did she move there? Did she relocate there? Or was she just traveling through? You know, we don't know much about Bethany. Bethany is a mystery.
Bethany is a mystery. Building mystery. You guys, these are the days. Welcome to Truth and Transparency. Make sure you guys hit your thumbs up. So just spraying it all over, you know. Talking a little bit about this, talking a little bit about that. And where is... Okay. This accidentally split off now. It's making it... So, I don't know if you guys remember back in the day when Jonathan Lee Riches found out that Bethany... what was her name? No, the other one that kind of looks like her. What was her name? I'm going to do Sue Mackay, though. He had a good one on Sue Mackay. So Jonathan was literally like all up in Sigma Chi's ass. Rightfully so. There was nothing but cop cars over there all the time. Emily, yeah, that's her name. Emily's dad, I think, went nuts on the JLR.
Elantra, whose occupants or occupier of the vehicle could have critical information on solving this case or could be involved. But I want to share a little bit about these fraternities. On Nez Perce, there's actually 4 fraternities that are close to this home where the stabbings occurred. The stabbings occurred right over there. On the opposite side of those apartment complex, those brown buildings over there is Queen, 500 Queen Avenue. That's Taylor. In front of me is the band field. Well, on that evening into the early morning on the 13th of November, police encountered some young men that were drinking on this band field at 3:01 a.m. Police are saying it's not related. Taylor is there. The Taylor turn left on Taylor. That's Blake. And then Nez Perce right here. Now, there's one fraternity down there at the corner. It's called the Farmhouse Fraternity. But I want to walk up here and show you these other fraternity houses. East of here, they were looking in those areas. So who knows? Who knows if the killer...
That's not the one I wanted. Hold on. Yeah, this is it.
In 800 feet, turn left onto Blake Avenue.
Check this out.
Take the next left onto Blake Avenue.
It's kind of loud. Hold on. Right here. Look at this. It's all lined. Right when you turn left, all state troopers. Look at this. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you go up a little bit further. Because they're right up here on the left.
Take the next left onto Nez Perce Drive. Continue for 1.5 miles.
It's going to be right up here on the left. One right there. See? That's right across from Sigma Chi. And right up here on the right, that's Coomer Scott Green's place. Right there. It's like a hidden drive there on the right. This might be the unedited version. Let's see. I thought there was one that had no. I want the JLR Idaho State Police, maybe 9 Idaho State Troopers.
On the morning they occurred. Of course, there's 4 victims: Kaylee Gonsalves, Maddie Mogan, Ethan Chabin, and Xander Kernodle. 4 young people, their lives snuffed out within minutes. And it's just a horrific, horrific crime that has rocked this small community. We are taking your questions. We have been this whole hour. Please keep them coming on Twitter, Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube, and we will get to as many of them as possible and answer them to the best of our abilities. Jennifer Koffendorfer is a former FBI agent. She is here with us along with Imran Ansari. He is a host here at Law and Crime and an attorney. I want to start this question with you, Jennifer, or toss this one to you. It comes from Miss Anonymous from YouTube, and she asks, have any leads investigated come from TikTok? What are your thoughts on that possibility?
Oh, I think definitely so. I can tell you my DM box is overloaded with information that's been conducted by different sleuths. And listen, they do amazing work. They're doing what the analysts aren't doing quite yet or have just started doing within law enforcement because they're waiting on subpoena returns and court order returns. But the cyber sleuths are in looking at all the social media and they have found some very interesting clues, things that are being said, definite pictures of this possible Elantra that they have found in the background even of Maddie in one picture. So they're finding great information and those are being sent in, I can assure you, to the FBI and to the tip line so they can be further evaluated by law enforcement.
And they are collecting that information. The Moscow police has put that information out that they are asking people to upload any digital evidence to the FBI's website. So that is a place where people can submit that information. We want to take this next question, and it comes from Allison from YouTube, or it might be Alacan. I hope I'm pronouncing that properly. Did they interview peeps from the frat house? And let me tell you, I will answer that question. I'll take that one. Yes, they have. And I've spoken to people at the Sigma Chi house where Ethan was a member and where Xana and Ethan attended the party that night at the Sigma Chi house on November 12th, just a short distance away from the house where the murders occurred. Ethan lived at the frat house, Xana at her home on King Road with Maddie and Kaylee.
For the record, Jeff, Xana's dad, and Xana's mom said that Ethan and Xana were at a bar that night.
And those people have been interviewed, and we've been told by the president of Sigma Chi that they are cooperating with law enforcement and have told them everything they know. So that's what we've been told. Imran, this next question will go to you. Fernanda Volcanis from YouTube asks, with no break-in, dog trapped in one of the rooms, no footprints with blood outside the house, couldn't the killer be a friend who went to sleep together and did it without haste and fear? So that's a hypothetical here.
What?
Yeah, Angie, listen, I think the fact that there was no forced entry and there's no sort of evidence, residual evidence of showing an entrance or exit that may be linked to the killings raises some questions. I think law enforcement most likely started with their investigations, let's say in the four corners of that house and who was in that house at the time and when they responded to the scene, the roommates, etc. There is that aspect of the house being a gathering point for college students and friends and whatnot. That may complicate things because the fact that there's no forced entry lends itself to an idea or a theory that this is someone who is familiar with one or all of the victims here. But, you know, I think law enforcement started in the closest proximity of where these bodies were found, and they've sort of expanded from that search. But it is very interesting that there's no forced entry and there's no evidence of entering or exit regarding, you know, say the bloody footprints or things like that. And I think law enforcement have looked at that, and they continue to look at what was in the four corners, if you will, of the house and now beyond.
Interesting you bring that up about the entry point because they're not commenting. I asked specifically Imran and Jennifer, how do you think this person got in the home? And they won't say. Everybody's been speculating about that sliding glass door at the back of the home that leads to the second floor. That seems likely, but we just don't know. It's one of those questions we'd all love to have answered. Jennifer, this next question is for you. It comes from Handsome Hensley on YouTube. Is it possible there may have been some type of altercation at the frat house, or maybe one of the frat members had an issue with them and followed them home? It seems that they must have had knowledge of the layout of the home. Was anybody at the frat interviewed? Well, we know they were, but your thoughts on this possibly being an altercation at the fraternity house and the party? Obviously, these are all just people, you know, asking questions about things they're wondering. Your thoughts on that possibility?
Well, there's a huge hiatus of time between the time they were at the party and the time they returned home, seemingly.
Oh, was there, Jennifer? That's because, again, I think they were at a bar.
At least from the timeline that we have made available to us through law enforcement. So as far as we know, those gaps have not been filled yet. Was there an altercation? We don't know because we're not privy to those interviews. I can tell you I've personally seen, though, different videos that have been sent to me at various times, you know, certainly interesting verbiage between people at the Sigma Chi house and Maddie and others. So, you know, that they're going to be looking at all of this. Did anybody have an issue? But I think because here we are weeks out and we still don't have a prime suspect, we are at the furthest reaches of the web that are on the peripheral of these individuals, meaning they are not the most obvious suspects seemingly, or else we would probably have that suspect named by now.
Yeah, definitely. Good.
So I believe that there was people from the Sigma Chi house that were suspects. So when Ann Taylor talks about suspects, I believe that she's referring to people from that frat, for the record. So for that, you know, the last thing I wanted to talk about is Dylan's interviews, this timeline of these interviews. Dylan was interviewed on November 13th, November 17th, December 1st, December 13th, and then December 30th. That's 5 times. That's 5 times. 11/13, 11/17, 12/1, 12/13, and then 12/30. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome. Welcome to being a member here. So with that said, if you break down what was going on at each one of those times, so on 11/13, obviously the day of, then 11/17, the day of the autopsy, as well as the day after 11/16, which was the first police presser. 12/1, right after they found Brian Koberger's car. 12/13. That's when things are heating up with the white Elantra. 12/30. The day of Brian Koberger's arrest. So the police said that when they would get new information, then of course, we would go back and like re-interview somebody or ask somebody, like, because something else was like, brought to our attention. So then we would ask, well, the person they kept going back and asking, you guys, was Dylan. Okay. Like, Dylan. I want to know how many times did they interview Bethany compared to Dylan. I mean, they left homegirl out to like, boom, like. Well, 12/13 is one day before Brent Kopaka. That's true too. So I guess we'll add that to the list. It's also like BK's leaving to go home, like drive home. Now, how many of these interviews do we think were done in person? So obviously 11/13 was in person, okay? Now, if you're like someone like Dylan, Bethany, wouldn't you get the fuck up out of there? Would you stay there? So was the 11/17 interview at home for Dylan? Like, where do these girls stay? Remember I had an episode about that. I was like, okay, well, where do these girls stay? Because obviously they weren't allowed to stay in their own home, right? So they had to get stuff out of their home because it was like, if you have medicine, if you have stuff that you need to get, like contacts or, just medicine, clothes, money, purse, wallet, you know what I mean? You have to get your stuff, right? So, I mean, everybody in your home was just murdered. Would you stay there? Would your parents allow you to stay there? Not even just, I'm not saying there at your house. I'm talking about even just in the vicinity. Like, I would just say, no, you're coming home. I'm going to get my child, right? I'm going to get my child, or I'm flying my child home, right? Then think about this. Frick, Dylan didn't have a vehicle. She was always borrowing people's cars, allegedly. Where was Bethany's, right? So where did these interviews take place? How many out of the 5 interviews were over the phone? Idaho State Police has no problem calling people up on the phone. And then what would be the purpose of them interviewing Dylan on 12:30? 12:30, the day of Brian Kober's arrest, interviewing Dylan. You didn't interview Bethany? Why doesn't Bethany get any love up in that probable cause? Anyways, you'd keep on going back to Dylan because you're giving her information that you've gotten from people, right? Hey, but the police don't ever come out and say, hey, we talked to so-and-so and this is what they said. That's not how they would do it. Okay. So I can't wait till these interviews surface one day to see how the police approached Dylan to do these interviews. Were they approaching her like she was a suspect? Were they approaching her like she could have been involved? Because if these two girls were texting during the crime, how anybody can just say to themselves, A, we think that these girls were even home. Okay. B, what the hell? How are they texting each other during this? Like you have to get a lot of answers. Okay. And then if you're somebody's parent whose kids were murdered, being stabbed, and now think about all the things that the Gonsalveses were talking about, like, well, what are these people's alibis? You know? But if I was to hear that these people were texting while my kids were getting stabbed to death, how? And then you hear somebody say, yeah, then I opened up the door and I was screaming and yelling out the door. Remember when Steve said that? You guys, if Dylan truly would have done that, she'd been dead. You're telling me that she wouldn't have been stabbed? You're not leaving any, like, witnesses. You're not even, because you're leaving a witness to the time of the crime, like, at least on that, of when this would have happened. And then I always ask myself, like, why haven't any of these girls reached out to any of these parents? Right? Because I know my roommates would have reached out to my parents. They didn't talk to any of these girls. The police can't tell you not to talk to people. You understand that? They can't say, hey, don't go talk to this person. Don't go talk to that person. It's not like, that's not, no. But if you lawyer up, your lawyers may say, hey, you're not, we're not going to talk about this with anybody, okay? So how quickly then did Dylan lawyer up? How quickly did Bethany lawyer up? I would have been lawyering up motherfucking day one. But at that age, like, it's different. Like, what do they know at 20, 21? Very interesting days of these 5 interviews. Then, how do we even know that it was only 5? How do we know that? Because I know how Idaho State Police operate. They don't record every time that they call somebody up. They're not making a report every time. So what if Dylan comes forward and she's like, they were calling me like every other day? That's going to be interesting, isn't it? So Dylan and Bethany were texting during the murders. We have Linda Lane, guys, right? At 4 o'clock in the morning, do you hear anything? At 4:15 in the morning, do you hear anything? At 4:30 in the morning, do you hear anything on Linda Lane? The answer is no. So if Dylan and Bethany are texting each other and saying, "Are you hearing this?" when they're describing what they're hearing, like, we have Linda Lane. When do we hear a dog barking for 30 minutes straight? At what point do we have a Linda Lane where we hear a dog barking for 30 minutes straight? I haven't gone back through to hear. Are there any times that we can hear a dog barking on Linda Lane? Because it'll tell you a lot more about what you can actually hear from Linda Lane then. From what Ashley Jennings was trying to say, hearing like a dog bark for like 20 or 30 minutes straight, I think we should go back and we should listen to Linda Lane and listen to when we hear the dogs bark. Has anyone gone through that? Around 4:30 for several minutes. And see, yes, 4:30, almost 5. And see, that's interesting to me that there would be a dog barking at 4:30. Because I thought the dog was barking at 4:17, right? So now we have to ask ourselves, is Linda Lane accurate? Are the timestamps on Linda Lane accurate? So Mark B, what do we have as far as dog barking? You can hear the dog barking, but it is faint. The guy in the truck drove away at 4:20. I remember that. I'm curious. I want to know about the dog barking. That was a big, big thing. Timestamps are for sure accurate. They have to match that DVR. Well, I've already, I think I've told you guys what I feel about the dog barking. Is if somebody took the dog outside of the house and put the dog into a vehicle, then the dog would bark because why is the dog being put in the vehicle, right? But that would keep the dog clean from not getting blood, right? So to me, ever since the days of we're listening to these hearings, and they're talking about the dog, and they're questioning clearly about the whereabouts of the dog. And they're over here saying, well, the dog didn't have, any blood, any evidence. The dog was in a room that didn't have any, blood. Okay. I don't know. Do you think that a dog would start barking if it started to smell blood? What do you guys think? Well, don't you think it's kind of weird that Dylan, not in any of her statements did she say, all I remember is the fucking dog was barking like crazy. And that's what woke me up. Like, is that anywhere? And it just, the dog kept barking and barking and barking and barking and barking and barking and barking. Notice how none of the statements were said that Dylan said the dog was barking. You guys don't think that's wild? I know it's wild. Because I also keep thinking, though, if the dog is in the room that's Kaylee's and the door was closed, let's say because we're putting Murphy, in there because we don't have Murphy in the crate or whatever. So here, I'll just put Murphy in my room, close the door, right? And so Murphy's in there. So do you think Murphy would have heard? Like, I mean, if Murphy doesn't see anything, because it's like, then why would Murphy ever be barking? So I thought about it like, okay, if Murphy was in that other room and the door was shut, would Murphy start barking because Murphy would start smelling blood? It also could make sense that if Kaylee was in her bedroom and she heard something, so she goes to leave her bedroom, but keeps Murphy in her room and closes, she's about to leave her bedroom, but she says, basically keeps Murphy in there, closes the door, and then, meets the killer head on into going into, Maddie's room, right? So but that would cause the barking to be way earlier, more like a 4:10. And then the dog would bark for 20 or 30 minutes straight. The dog is a 1-year-old puppy. So, I think the only way that the dog's blood free is if the dog was in Kaylee's room, the door was closed. If the dog was in a crate and slept in a crate, okay, and therefore it doesn't matter what room the dog would have been in, as long as the dog's in the crate, then the dog's not going to be getting out anywhere, right? Or if the dog was in a vehicle. I just want to know what would make the dog start barking for 20 to 30 minutes straight. If the dog is in fact in another room and the door is closed and you can't hear or see anything. But even if you can hear something, the dog is used to the loud music and them just, very interesting. Anyways, trying on the new name for you, Lana. Oh, crime tourists. There it is, banging it out. This thing doesn't work right. All right, guys, that's going to close out my night. Wanted to keep it right around and under 2 hours, so. I think the dog and the barkings are very important. Very, very important. The dog would have had to seen something to bark. Okay? There's nothing that you can see in the back of the house if you are Murphy in the back there, if it was in that room. And it was closed. So think about that. All right, guys. Peace out. Peace. That I was given to. So there was 2 different discs. Okay? They all knew about it.